Hi everyone, I'm Yash, the co-founder of Case Talker. We help legal teams turn complexity into clarity using AI systems and automation. Legal Talks with Yash today is where we bring the smartest legal minds together to decode how the future of law actually gets built, not in theory, but in the trenches of real operators. Today, we have with us Miss Aashna Duggal. Aashna is a lawyer and an expert witness specializing in defamation, employment, gender diversity, and damages. She serves as the chief legal officer for Girl Power Talk and also serves as the director of legal and research at Blue Ocean Global Technologies. With an acute focus on United States domiciled legal cases, her responsibilities include leading public relations, strategic partnerships, and litigation consulting engagements. Ashna is committed to championing for the legal rights of women and mentorship of tomorrow's leaders through Girl Power Talk. Ashna is also an active member of the New York State Bar Association, the American Bar Association, and the Academy of Legal Studies of Business. That's quite a lot, Ashna. Tell us a bit about yourself, Ashna, and thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Yash, first up. And it's a pleasure to connect with like-minded people. I come across so many individuals who are doing so great in the field of legal and tech. And that's how I was intrigued by the way and the themes that your podcast runs on. And it's equally a pleasure to be here. I think I've had a long-winded bio spoken by you about me, so I won't bore everybody here, but I'll just be just crisp by the way that I am a lawyer, I'm an expert witness. In a nutshell, I do a lot of work in the legal and tech industry because I work right at the intersection of it. I am the generation of attorneys who understands how AI works and how technology plays its role, but I also understand how laggard the legal system and the lawyers still are with respect to technology. Yeah, quite okay with discussing openly about subjects that people usually shy away from. And like you said, I am all about empowering individuals, have a conscious bias, of course, towards empowering women because I work with an organization that is focused on that. But that being said, yeah, we have a global team of individuals. I head our team of 15 plus attorneys who we've employed globally, and we work on a lot of expert witness and litigation consulting mandates. So, yeah, that's about me.
That sounds amazing, Ashna. And then again, hearing about your experiences from you makes it even better. Seeing that you have built credibility both across India and the US, and now you're sitting at the intersection of the advocacy, as you were talking about, between research, executive leadership, and actual law. So, what were the key experiences for you early on? Cases, confrontations, and other turning points that changed how you think about influence and credibility as a lawyer?
So I think the right way to respond to this is that to come out clean and to tell you how I started working even before I was an attorney, a legit attorney. I was still in law school when I joined Blue Ocean Global Technology and World Power Talk. And that's how I grew in the role that I am today. But if you talk about a turning point for me, it came really early. Like I said, I started off even before I had a legit degree to myself. Because when I first worked on a cross border defamation case for the United States jurisdiction, I was still in law school. And that time I realized that credibility in law doesn't just come from how well read you are in terms of statutes and precedents. It's not just that, but it's also from how you communicate the law and how you interpret it in terms of fairness. Because all these cases, and when you're working as a lawyer, the tensions are really high, the stakes are really high. And there have always been moments when the opposing counsel just tends to challenge your credibility in court, also because you're young, so you get that more often. And because you're young and you're only starting off, moments like that really force you to pause and ask, what does it actually mean to have influence as a lawyer? And so I learned it the hard way, and I learned that influence is it's earned by consistency and by repeatedly showing up every day, just doing the small things. And mind you, being a lawyer is not all glamorous as it's shown on television. but also doing those unglamorous things, those mundane tasks every day when you wake up and meeting deadlines. And most importantly, of course, maintaining integrity in every little email that you sent out or presenting facts without any exaggeration. Yeah, I think cases like that have always taught me that true advocacy is not about you making the loudest argument and you being the loudest in the room. It's about how you're making the most valid, principled argument and making a point. So I foster that mindset at Blue Ocean Global Technology and Girl Power Talk when I lead those teams because I understand that our work is not, it's complex, but it often also intersects with law, reputation, and how there's a human dimension to it. Because remember, we're dealing with individuals. So a lot of empathy that way.
Definitely, really true. And it's really good to understand your perspectives about this, especially as someone young in the field of law, because what we often see is that in any industry, it is harder to get
Yeah.
and make that headway when you're just getting in. So it's your views about getting things correct, getting the facts right, and making arguments that are not just loud but actually matter is really true, right? If you had to talk today to a junior counsel, what is one advice that you would give from your experience? That how should they study their cases? How should they pick their cases? And why do you think that would matter?
I feel like because I deal with a team of individuals who are not just seasoned lawyers and
Mhm,
experts, but they're also people starting off really young, people still in law school who we're grooming.
mhm,
But I feel like I would want to share an example of, let's say, a defamation case that we were reached out for and we consulted on, which involved reputation harm as for the internet. So the internet, the digital age being involved. And internet is universal, right? So one thing about, and a lot of our work is related to reputations online and how to expunge media. How do you quality control what's out there
mhm,
about you because you create that narrative. So one thing about that is that internet really syndicates things quickly. And so things are shared with people in seconds. And that particular case just showed us how quickly narratives can spiral online. And it was a full situation of chaos for us to handle because it's essential for you as a lawyer to stay factual when emotions can come up in way when you're making the most logical decision. So as a lawyer, there has to be like a fine line between you thinking factually
mhm,
and you making decisions in haste and being emotionally invested. Yeah, I feel like the most important thing I'm going to tell a junior is credibility isn't just built in the
mhm,
courtroom, it's built on how you prepare yourself. So, how well you show up is how you show to people, right? That you're here and you're here to stay. And so, how do you cite evidence? How do you treat witnesses? How do you speak to opposing counsel? All of that matters so much. And so, it eventually becomes a part of your reputation inside the courtroom that gets you work outside the courtroom. So, yeah, I think that's going to be my advice. Integrity.
That's really good advice. And I think we have seen something similar. Like I have seen, and this is something that I advise my team on to, that no
Mhm.
matter how big or small a client is, no matter what work you're doing, ensure that you give your best, right? Because people would only come back to you if they see that not only are you doing your work with, as you said, with credibility, integrity, but you're also living up to the promises that you make, right? Because if you promise people
Correct.
10 things, right, and you deliver only three, they would not be happy. So we always also try to strive for that. And I think that's a great leadership principle right
Mhm.
there. What is a leadership lesson that you have actually learned here related to this that has accelerated your own powers and your own influence on results? Not just legal correctness, but the actual results of those cases.
Yeah. So I feel like I said, because I started off really early, I always starting off early, you do not really understand what's right and what's wrong, and still
Mhm,
navigating the kind of field that you chose for yourself and understanding if this is even right for you. So I believe that I thought being right meant being legally correct, being meticulously prepared and you know everything, and that was enough to drive results. But the harsh truth that I learned through my experiences is that people don't really follow correctness. They follow their conviction and clarity that they come with. So a lot of what is translated through you, through your experiences, is what your client ultimately bears, right? When I stepped into leadership roles, I particularly manage diverse teams because we're a global team and we have teams across Gold Patok and Blue Ocean Global Technology that I've had the chance to manage. I realized that your most effective quality as a leader is just not to interpret things. And I also want to connect this to how there's not just interpretation of law that's important for you as a lawyer, but how do you interpret people? How do you deliver it? And so you have to understand that what motivates people, what fears are they holding back, right? And how to align those personal truths with the shared mission that you have at your organization. So I started focusing less on having every correct answer to things that people came to me and more on asking how can we get better at this. So I'm really open about things. If I don't know something, if I lack the direction to really follow something, I would upfront ask for it. That shift from always being correct and from proving to empowering people, I don't need to prove a point to my team. I just have to empower people and they would understand they how do they really matter in an organization like ours. So, yeah, that completely changed how I influenced outcomes for myself, whether that be as a leader leading two teams, and whether that be in the court when I am okay if I don't know an answer to something. I'm okay if I don't have the answer to a client's question. And I measure my success by not how technically sound or correct I am. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, but I want to measure my success by how many people think that they can be themselves around me and how they feel that they're in ownership of the outcome that comes through me. They have that trust in me. So, yeah, I think that's where the real influence for me comes from.
That's a really good point you put out there, Ashna, because you often see, especially in a field like legal, that people try as much as possible to be correct, to actually
Yeah.
own things in a way that like they are the only ones that matter. But having the team actually matter, having the team care about not only you but their own work is really important, because again, as long as the team is happy, as long as they feel that they're doing something meaningful, everyone not only comes out happier but also we get better outcomes. So really great insight there. So, talking about one of the points that you touched on earlier about how Blue Ocean works with reputational risks, right? So, in today's
Mhm.
internet age, when you triage a defamation case or a brand attack scenario, what do the first 48 hours look like for you? Is there a checklist that the legal team and the PR team and any other digital forensics that your team does?
Simply put, the first 48 hours are pure chaos. But then also, like I said, chaos leads you to clarity. If you have that notion of clarity, I think you sort of navigate through all the challenges that come your way. And that's what we tell our clients. The first 48 hours after you're hit with a reputational attack rock can really make or break your entire process of recovery. Like, how bad is the harm? And then I learned that, and I learned this the hard way, that during high profile defamation cases that we've consulted on, by the time you have a plan of action, or, when I work on these cases firsthand, the first step is usually creating a legal notice, right? When you send that out to people and have them stop it. So by the time you have those legal notices and all those legal lingos that you love using as attorneys in that paperwork, the false narrative has already reached a vast number of people because let's be honest, we live in the era of technology and nothing travels faster than gossip and news and anything bad about you. Yeah, And sadly, in the age of internet, things like that travel faster than evidence, right? You already have a notion built about someone that you understand a post about, let's say on Instagram, or you're just scrolling through and see a YouTube video about it. You have that notion and you never check for veracity because your mind goes through a situation of bias where you already have that notion about a person built by whatever you see firsthand. So the first 48 hours checklist is just following three principles, and this is something that we follow internally, and I hope people get something out of it. Is first up, preserve, followed by assess, and then lastly, align. Preserve is how we immediately secure all the correct sources, the evidence, anything that we can find to make sure that person who is being harmed has the right way to go about. Because once these posts start to build up, you lose track because algorithms are crazy. They would refresh and you'll have another entourage of posts and digital finger footprints across the internet. And so the next step that you handle is assessing. So how do you bring together legal, PR, digital forensics in one room and you understand that it's no longer just like filing a claim and it's nothing to be put on paper and sent to someone? It's actually calling comms and it's actually taking action. Acting in sync is what we really appreciate here in our teams because we think of a reputation repair issue like a trauma unit, right? All of you come together to really get your client out of this situation. And lastly, align it. I mean, align the tone, align the timing of your steps. The legal message coming from us as attorneys really protects liability for that client, telling people, no, this person is innocent until proven guilty. And the PR teams, of course, have another array of things that they take care of, which protects a person's dignity. And the digital team also sorts of protects the visibility. You know how SEO and suppression works in today's time. You can really suppress something about you that exists online, or you can create digital assets that sort of cover up what's up there. But yeah, the PR team and the digital team work on that aspect. And honestly, if all of this isn't really aligned, all your efforts vain. So you end up winning the case, but losing to the public because they've already made a perception about you. So a golden rule I think we've all learned here working on these cases is our job really isn't just prove the truth later, when, of course, the court case is settled and the truth is finally out there. But it's to protect the trust today because it takes years to build. And after years of the legal battle, when you have a decision in your favor, it's not going to do a lot, honestly, because the trust that has been shattered through all these years of litigation and your name being tainted and being a part of a lawsuit, it's all gone. So yeah, protect the trust today.
Definitely, really true. Like in an industry like yours, where trust is the most important thing, reputation is the most important thing, it really does become
Mhm.
important to not only protect it, but also to portray it in the best way online. I'll skip over the next question because I think we touched over it in this one and move on,
Yeah.
right? Ashna, I saw that you recently presented in AI in legal research and governance, right? So, where do you think
Mhm.
AI is shaving off time and shaving off the increased risk downstream for companies? And do you think it's still a mirage, or it's something that you see in your day-to-day practice now?
Yeah, I feel like this is my most important and loved topic to talk about. Like I said, I presented on AI and governance and law because there were things out about AI and people were really worried about AI taking up our
Hmm.
jobs. But I have a complete different take on that because AI needs a master. And we are the masters.
Hmm.
We really need to take control of AI to really get ourselves what we want, but at the same time maintain our relevance in the industry. So I like to say that AI is brilliant. It's brilliant at things you can't even imagine. Like, it's like your legal assistant. So it can draft the law, it can make your time easier, easily managed by taking up all those tasks that you would spend hours and hours on. It can take care of the formatting, it can take care of some sort of research to some degree, but it cannot still understand the power of justice and human emotions and empathy. So I feel like where AI really shines today, and it's commendable that AI exists because it's for the tasks that are really repetitive and have some sort of structure and boundaries that you can teach AI to follow. Things like contract review, case law summarization, how do you review documents? There's thousands of documents, and you cannot, it's humanly impossible to look at everything as an attorney single handedly working on a case. And it's where logic outweighs nuance. So I've seen AI cut hours of research time for our team, and of course, without compromising accuracy, you need to be on top of it and you need to quality control. But I think the mileage appears
Mhm.
when we treat AI as a sole decision maker
Mhm.
rather than just an aide or an ally or a
Mhm.
legal assistant. So I think a model can sure summarize 1,000 cases if you give it, but it can't really sense the ethical weight
Mhm.
of one bad precedent. It doesn't tell you there's an appellate court decision that really outweighs all your research on those 1,000 cases. So I love how we can delegate tasks to AI, but I don't think that relying on it is 100% something we can do right now.
Mhm.
And on that note, we're also building an AI tool and an AI platform
Mhm.
called legalexperts.ai. By building that platform, we aim to completely redefine how legal resources are accessed. It's just so relevant. If you don't update yourself, you of course tend to lose out on opportunities. And so our vision is just guided by timeless principles of integrity. How do you make AI responsible, fairness, and of course, service to others? Because as lawyers, you are indebted to your clients.
Mhm.
So we tend to build that, and the idea behind it all is just that legal expert.ai just carries forward Mr. Lincoln's legacy. A company where justice, innovation, integrity all work together, work hand in hand, and of course, so the greater good. That's the idea behind it.
No, definitely really true because, like, again, at our team at Case Talker, we also day to day work in and out with AI experts, legal experts, and we have seen a similar trend in the industry, right? Where AI can help you summarize the information, it can help you get those
Mhm.
insights, right? But it actually falls upon the legal experts at the end of the day to finally apply it, right? Because what we believe at Case Talker
Correct.
is that our systems are there to reduce your time so that you can do more, so that you can give more output, the companies can grow faster, right? And may that go across
Mhm.
legal research with our platform Kesika or across our AI chatbot CD Genie. We try to maximize not only the help that AI can give teams, but also the quality of the insights that we give. So really great point there, Ashna. In a growing org today like yours, right? What is your
Mhm.
threshold to actually automate the recurring legal tasks like your review checklist, your disclosure drafts versus keeping it a manual process? Because again, technology is entering into these domains, AI is entering into these domains. So, what do you currently automate and what do you like to actually keep with yourself?
Think the rule is pretty simple
Mhm.
that I want to automate what's predictable and what's something that AI can possibly grasp or protect what is principled and something that's very nuanced and very detail oriented for my and for the human element to take care of. For example, if I'm automating a disclosure check
Mhm.
or let's say a compliance reminder, that makes perfect sense because it frees me my time for the human part of the law, preparing well with the client, which AI may not be able to at this point because it's still evolving. But just helps me free up my time to make up more time for things that involve a more human reasoning, persuasion, empathy. How do I look at cases? So I draw that line where automation dilutes accountability. And so if a task involves ethical discretion and a human element of me trying to make sense of things, I would like to keep it for myself and keep it human. But if there's a task that I can probably trust AI for and AI with, yeah, that is something that I want to have AI take up from me so I can take care of the bigger, more better things to do. So yeah, a few years. Yeah, thinking of an example, like, a few years ago, I did try to do that for myself. I tried to like auto generate some engagement summaries and some engagement letters and contracts that you usually do when you hire your clients. And that sort of really freed up my time to dive deep into the case review that would come later. So it freed up my mind, it freed up my time, and I became a better leader because I could trust AI with some of those tasks that I had to probably time doing or quality control when my junior counsels were working on. Yeah.
Really great like experience that you have there, Ashna, because in today's age, especially in a field like law, right, we see that people aren't as open to like not only accepting technology but also integrating it in their day-to-day workflows. So
Yeah.
actually seeing people in the legal industry not only use AI and use technology to automate their workflows, but at the same time accountably using it so that you can maintain your ethical integrity, maintain the quality of work that people expect from you is really great. And we've seen something similar at CaseTalker, where not only is a tool there to help you, but it's also supposed to be that
Mhm.
guiding hand for you that, hey, here is the knowledge, here is the information, here is the baseline of the work ready for you. Now you can go ahead and actually work on the lawyering, work on the legal aspects that interest you instead of all of the administrative work and putting things together. And that's really something that matters.
Absolutely agreed on that. And I love how you've built Case Docker with the same intent. Because, like you said, people in the law industry, and I'm not just talking about lawyers, but also people who closely work with the law, are such laggards on accepting technology and on accepting change that it's difficult to convince people that there's something better out there that they could possibly try and make their lives easier. So like I said, when we started off, I come from the generation of lawyers that openly accepts AI and the new technological advancements because we understand how if you use it ethically and if you still manage whatever it does, I feel like there's nothing better and there's no better choice for you to make if you want to be sane as a lawyer. So I love that. I love that AI is here to stay.
Really nice. Ashna, when we talk about your experience again in your legal department, right? You have helped build a legal department today that's meeting the rising expert and witness focused matters in the US, right? So, what are some org design principles that you follow today that help you scale your team without actually reducing the quality of the work that you do and without adding headcount too fast that it becomes hard to manage?
And we've always had this principle or this rule where we don't want to aimlessly just scale, and quality is always and will always be paramount to quantity. So I completely agree with that notion. And when we began scaling our US focused expert witness practice, and we honestly didn't have the luxury of adding 10 new lawyers first up because there was one thing that was common for all of us was the intent that we wanted to bring people of clarity, and we didn't want to really work on the capacity. We wanted to come from a place of clarity, people who understand why we work on this, who understand the nuances of it, but also understand the intent behind it. I think the first thing we built was a legal expert witness or a consulting intake metrics where all the data about every matter that we came across, every lead that reached out to us, no matter how small, how big, we made sure we collected all that data and that uniform data in terms of managing it via jurisdictions, deadlines, parties. Is this a plaintiff oriented suit that we're supposed to take care of, or a defendant? How much is the complexity and how do you rate that? So we have these parameters in place so we know what we're getting into. And then there's also transparency that saves us a lot of hours and a lot of hours of follow up. That's one thing that we do. We also created manuals, and by manuals, I don't mean any 200-page manuals. Those are humanly impossible for you to read and interpret and also yourself posted
Mhm.
with. But just like reliving one pages, like when you come across a particular case, how do you respond? If X happens in, let's say, discovery, here's your next three moves. So that's how we made it something that creates value and doesn't really create an obligation for you to go through that 200-page manual and not understand a word, but actually keep something to yourself and really understand it. Made all of this work well for us wasn't just the system that we created, but it was also trust, because you know how every junior counsel comes with a sense of spirit of giving something of themselves to the legal fraternity, because we come from a place of, like I said, clarity and intent. So you need to understand what you're doing and why. What is the why behind a process that you follow, right? Because you're not aimlessly following it, there's a logic behind it. And I feel like there's a sense of clarity that scales faster than hierarchy, in the sense that when you make people understand the actual weight and the actual importance of their contributions, however little they are, they know that there's a seriousness to their contributions and they tend to do better. I think, with respect to manuals and templates and creating our own approaches of outreaching and handling leads that come our way, there's also a lot of soft skill building that we think is paramount to our process here. And we just don't grow a department, we grow a sense of shared responsibility that they're all part of. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because, again, in scaling smaller teams, it's not only important to get those processes in place, because as you scale, if you don't have them in place, it becomes even harder.
Mhm.
Like when we had initially started Case Docker, it was about getting those processes right so that not only does the team
Yeah.
scale with you, but you're also scaling in a way that's sustainable, that's not going out of your hands. And then at the end of the day, it helps ensure that the outcomes that you make, the actual product that you create, is something that people like, is something that lives up to people's expectations. Really nice.
Correct.
Talking about your individual experience and like your individual beliefs, right? So many women in legal discussions today stay abstract in the field, right? So what are your views on the
Mhm.
same, and what's one policy and habit that's helped you move that needle for retention and promotion on your team? Because again, as a leader in girl power talks, this must be something that really hits close to you.
Yes, you're right. It really hits home. I think for me, and you're right about how these things about women are just abstract and in theory, because for me, it's not just about slogans, it's about how we're building our systems. Like, how are we creating change? How are we bringing about change? It's funny, and I always am so vocal about it, because every Women's Day we have new slogans, and there's only so much improvement or little improvement that you can see. So, no, we don't want new advertisements. No, we don't want you to come up with ways or offers or rebates that you give us on a particular occasion. We want actual improvements in systems and just make it past theory. Like, just bring about change. I feel like as an organization, you're like really responsible to make a move. And coming from an organization called Gurpa Talk that is consciously biased towards women, and we want to bring about a change. And so we created a place that is safe for women, not just for women, for non binary individuals, for everyone out there, men, women, whoever wants to be a part of this movement. But yeah, I think there's one policy that we've really held on to, which is that every internal opening is first listed with me, and it shows transparency over proximity, because we're on the lookout for people or individuals who really want to be a part of this movement and who really want to be accountable for their actions. And I think one thing that has really helped me as a leader really retain and have a notion within the team about empowering women is that we don't have any fancy programs for upliftment. We don't have any fancy show of we are doing this for women. I just have one that I follow, which is a weekly meeting. And I've learned this about mentorship is about you don't have to tell people what to do. That's like giving orders, but it's about reminding them why they belong to this organization, why are they important, and then making them believe that they are a part of the organization's growth, and however little initiatives they take, whatever little work they do, they still are a part of the growth that eventually happens. So that is one golden rule that I really follow. I'm not into uplifting people through any fancy measures. I just think my most powerful tool is conversation and having a one on one with people, just like scheduling 30-minute check ins. And no, we don't want to talk about how many deadlines you met. But I want to know how much you love working here and what you don't like, what makes you want to quit this field. What is that one thing that you don't like about working here or working in the industry? I want to know your strengths and weaknesses, not because I want to use them against you, but because I want to make this a better representative field for you to be in. So I think representation for me is not like a policy that I have to follow, but it's also a daily behavior. Like, how am I someone people can look up to if I am not really holding on to my own values? So yeah, that's how I think we retain people in our team.
That's really deep insight because as I talked in the beginning, right, we talk about how these discussions stay abstract, and as you mentioned, right, companies make policies and make these events that probably run for 2 days in the year, and the rest of the time,
Yeah.
it doesn't actually scale that much, right? So having those policies in place, having an environment in place where people not only feel empowered but also get their point through, are able to connect with you and are getting the opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise, is really what matters, right? Because again, it's the ground level work more than any high level talks that matter to people, and the people actually end up making the company. So really great insight there, Asha.
Yeah, and yeah, just wanted to mention how we're also like really open to working with mothers who are just like restarting their careers after a long career gap. And they're always apprehensive of, okay, why is this company eager to take me? Because as a mom, I have all these obligations, and why would you want to hire me? And we're always like, we're here to help you, and we're here to kickstart where you left and probably give you a safe space where you're not just a mom, but you're also someone who you were before you became a mother, someone who was equally ambitious, equally career oriented. And we, yeah, tend to be that safe space for everybody who wants to kickstart and come back.
Really nice, because creating such a safe space and creating that environment is something that's probably not seen in the field. So really commend you for that again, Ashna.
Correct.
Before we close out today, I wanted to ask you
Mhm.
one final question. If every GC and legal leader listening today could adopt one new operating rule that would change their organization tomorrow, make it more powerful, and make it future proof, especially with the changes in law, what would that rule be as per you?
Okay, this is an interesting one. Um, and I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping that when you're at a particular level in your life where you tend to really protect what you know and protect where you have reached. But I would say that as a leader and as a mentor, as someone who people look up to, I think more than gatekeeping, you just have to be a translator, a bridge between trying to reach the same level as you are. Try to be that bridge. Because for too long, legal teams have built such high walls around
Mhm.
themselves, of course, complexity, and you know how it's an uptight profession, and it's a boys club, and it's what all that you can hear about the legal industry. And I feel as a 21st century lawyer and as a 21st century working individual, I feel like the future belongs to those who build these bridges, who can translate actions into language that is business, that is media, that is public, that is law, anything that people can act upon and can take away from your experiences. Because the most trusted leaders, and I'm not even talking about legal leaders here, I'm talking about just leaders in any industry that you operate from. And I know they don't hoard experience, they want to be vocal about their experiences, they don't hoard expertise, they want to democratize it, right? You want to be the leader that turns compliance into a sort of a culture and replace a strict no with, okay, not yet, but here's how. Just like bridging that gap between people who want to reach at the same level as you. And I feel like if we all practice that one simple rule, lead as translators and not be gatekeepers, everything, not just law, would just stop being something as a department of no. And it would start becoming a department of why not? And here's how we can change it. And so that's when I feel legal, most importantly, becomes not just powerful, but also very human. We're all humans. And we want to make sure that law is just not about interpreting what is in the books. It's not about interpreting precedents set. It's about how you interpret the human behaviors that you have. So, yeah, I think that's the rule that I hope and believe we get to follow.
No, makes a lot of sense. And this is something that we have heard about legal departments a lot, that like they can often be the barrier in the company, and that legal isn't
Absolutely.
seen as a part of the business function, but as a separate total entity in the organization. So it's about bringing those walls down and actually making yourself more approachable, making yourself more outgoing, and making legal into a department that the company doesn't see as just a cost center, but as the trailblazer for the new enhancements and the new integrations in the company. Really great then. Thanks again, Ashna, for being here on the podcast today. And thanks for all of your great insights. It was great understanding your perspectives in law and your experiences.
Thanks, Yash. And yeah, I would just end on this note on how there's most a lot of people talking about the same things that I did. But I think the only intent, and I know we've talked about intent so many times in this podcast that we've recorded, but I feel like just when you're true to your intent and when you're really doing good work, it shows. So I feel like anybody who just hears this podcast and comes across this really understands that the wait to get ahead of your apprehensions and your incapabilities is just how you see things and how you change your ways. Yeah, I hope and believe the world becomes a better place and we have these conversations and we have these topics that we can always openly talk about. Thanks for having me, people like me, and people who are really freely, openly talking about these things and only get that limelight because people like you are running podcasts like this. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ashna. And thanks again to our listeners for joining us here.